Hello guys, in this video I'm going to be building this McLaren Mercedes MP4 25 by Revell. This represents the car driven by Lewis Hamilton and Jenson Button in the 2010 F1 season. Although oddly Revell have a separate boxing of this kit for the two drivers, so this version I'm building can only build the Jenson Button version. I'm not quite sure why that is, since it requires separate box art, different decals, and even separate instructions, but for some reason that's what Revell have done. As I say, this is the Jenson Button version, and because Button won the 2009 World Drivers' Championship, this is the number 1 car. One unique aspect of this car is the so-called F-duct, which was essentially a small hole near the front of the car, near the cockpit, which allowed air to enter the car and was channeled through towards the rear wing. This hole could be covered by the driver's leg, which controlled the airflow into the car and therefore the airflow to the rear wing. This meant by moving their leg, the driver could change the airflow to the rear wing and reduce the aerodynamic drag, which would improve straight line speed. It was quite a clever device, and although it was protested by other teams, most notably Red Bull, it wasn't banned because it wasn't considered to be a movable aerodynamic device. The MP4 25 did have some solid results. Button won 2 races and took 5 other podiums, while Hamilton won 3 races and took 6 podiums. Nevertheless, the Drivers' Championship that year was taken by Sebastian Vettel in the Red Bull, who won the first of his 4 Drivers' Championships. As you can see here, while I've been talking, I've been building up some of the sub-assemblies. You'll see that the body shell has a few parts that need adding to it. The driver's seat has a control panel that needs adding to it. And we do get an engine as well. That final item is a slightly strange inclusion because there's no way of removing the engine cover. As you'll see, the upper bodywork is largely one piece. And so I didn't pay a huge amount of attention to painting the engine cover. Here's our relatively small Mercedes-Benz 2.4 litre engine. And here you can see just how that will be covered by that bodywork. This piece here is the famous F-duct, which could be covered from inside the cockpit by the driver's leg. Improving my sanding and smoothness of finish has been a goal of mine for my F1 cars. So here everything was given a coat of Tamiya grey primer and then sanded with some 2000 grit sandpaper to try to get that nice and smooth, ready for the chrome coat. For that spray coat I used Tamiya TS30, which is a rattle can, silver leaf. The main reason I use that is because I have a few of these cans hanging around from when I first got back into modelling, and I don't really use them that much these days, but they're not cheap, so when an opportunity comes up to use them, I tend to go for it. I also think with metallic colours, a rattle can often gives a much better consistent finish than certainly than my airbrushing. Here you can see the floor has been painted with Tamiya semi-gloss black, which is X18 airbrushed. And these really are the large main components of our car. Revell are quite good at giving us lots of decals for the cockpit area, so we tend to get the FAA Stewards Scrutineer stamp, we get some decals for the steering wheel, and we get decals for the seat belts as well. We also get a small decal with a circuit map to go on the cockpit sidewall. As you can see here, the decal sheet is surprisingly big and includes a lot of carbon fibre decals. Now, I'm not a huge fan of those, and I'm not particularly keen on getting any decals around compound curves, but in particular these Revell decals tend to be quite thick and do tend to fight you a bit. So I did put the carbon fibre decals onto the floor of the car, but for all of those ones that are supposed to go around the suspension arms and so on, I just left them off. Normally I would avoid any sort of solid colour decals at all costs, but we don't really have much choice here because we've only got the logos and so on with a solid background. So there's no real option to paint the red on this car. Luckily the areas of red are relatively small, but still these decals were quite thick and did take a lot of persuasion to go down. The other decal which caused me huge problems, and luckily I used a spare one later after messing this up, was this nose art here with a number on the front and then the red stripes that go around the side. I just could not get this to lay flat no matter what I did. Luckily for some reason this kit includes two of these. They're virtually identical, there's just a slightly different black stripe on them for different Grand Prix. So I was able to use the second one, and what I did is I cut that into two decals, cutting off the orange stripe and keeping it separate to make it easier to apply. One tool I did find really useful for stubborn decals is this Vallejo decal fix. It's basically just some glue. And for decals like this, where they have to go over that shark's fin at the back and fold down, it's invaluable. You get one side on as normal, put a little bit of the decal fix on the other side, and then just sort of fold it over and hold it down firmly with your thumb, and it will stick quite quickly. This decal here, the Vodafone one on the side pod, was probably the most difficult to do. It's got a complex compound curve for the side pod, and again it's a thick decal. So again it was a case of lots of Tamiya decal fix, lots of persuasion, and realising that when the decal is sort of in place but looking wrinkly, those wrinkles will disappear as the decal sets. And I think overall it's not perfect, but it did go down reasonably well. And to be honest, the application of the decals was the most time-consuming part of this build. Once that was done and they were dry, I gave everything a coat of VMS gloss varnish. I really like the VMS varnishes, but I do seem to struggle with the gloss one more than the semi-gloss and the matte. But I think I did an okay job this time. And then it was simply a case of putting those sub-assemblies together and adding the tyres. And then my McLaren was complete. So there we go guys, that was my build of the McLaren MP4 25 in 1/24th scale from Revell. I do like these Revell F1 kits, and I think that if you get them for a decent price on eBay, they do represent really good value for money. And in many cases, the only alternative for a lot of these subjects is quite expensive kits which will cost you over $100 from Studio 27 and similar manufacturers. I've still got at least one of these kits to build, which is the Renault R23, and I feel like I've got another one as well, but I can't quite remember what that is at the moment. Anyway, I would like to say thank you to all of you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. And I would like to say a special thank you to my Patreon supporters and YouTube members for your ongoing support. It is greatly appreciated, guys. Thank you very much. I will be back next week with another video. So until then, thank you again for watching and have fun modelling.